I, 27M, just found out my girlfriend, 24F, is lying about being on a trip. Is there any hope, or am I cooked? Plus, update. Original post. My girlfriend Amy and I went on our first date around 1.5 years ago, took things slowly while being exclusive, and have been officially dating 1 year. Overall, the relationship has been pretty good, minus some small hiccups in communication that she chalks up to her neurodivergence. Amy isn't great with texting, which I thought was a red flag at first, until I found out she's like that with almost everyone, most of her friends and family included. To give a little background, Amy and a few of her girlfriends go to this conference a few states over twice per year. It's a 2-day event, which they usually turn into a 5-day vacation, because it requires a flight and hotel and is in a nice city. Amy's friend group is typically very active on social media during these trips, posting on their Instagram story during all points, flights, conference, beach, etc. This weekend was supposed to be their 3rd time attending. Amy and her friends have had their flights and hotels booked for a few months, confirmed by some of their posts on social media being excited about having everything booked. Unfortunately, the conference was canceled, but they already booked everything, so they decided to still enjoy a vacation. My girlfriend and I had a date night last weekend. She was telling me how excited she was for her trip. All was good, but at the end of the date I caught a glimpse of Amy's phone. She was on her airline app and it looked like she was reading cancellation policies. We had a long day and I was tired and felt like I was snooping, being nosy, so I didn't say anything. During the week, I asked Amy to hang out the day before the flight, emphasizing that I wanted to see her before her trip. Unfortunately, she was meeting up with her group of co-worker friends, so she couldn't. No worries. The morning of her flight, I texted her wishing her a safe flight and happy trip, and she liked my message. We haven't talked since. As I said, she's not a big texter, so we usually don't text much besides planning dates and in emergencies. I figured she was on her trip, so I haven't texted to plan a date. Now on to the meat of the issue. Amy is now supposed to be a few days into her trip, and I noticed none of her friends were posting on Instagram. I thought that was weird because they usually post a lot, but I shrugged it off. That was until tonight. Amy started posting videos of her at a show. It looked fun, and I didn't think twice about it. Until the ending, where the show host called out, "Thank you," and then the name of the major city nearby where we live, approximately 30-minute drive. I looked up the name of the show, and of course, it was in that nearby city this weekend, meaning she wasn't on that vacation after all, and never thought to say anything to me about it. I did a little snooping on Venmo, and found out that over 2 weeks ago, Amy's friend paid her back the money that Amy had her sent her for the hotel and car rental. So she's known the trip was canceled for 2 weeks and hasn't said anything to me every time I brought it up. Where do I go from here? I feel like I'm suddenly spiraling, going crazy overthinking everything lately to see if I've missed any signs. I've already started assuming the worst, and I'm panicking. I'm out of town for the weekend, and I feel like this has totally thrown off my trip. Is this worth a conversation, or is the relationship already over? Is there any reason she would have not said something by now? Even if she tells me the trip was canceled right when I see her before I confront her, would that still justify not telling me until after the trip? Please, any advice is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Edit. Her best friend just uploaded a picture of them together during the show, so I know she wasn't there with some other guy. But that doesn't explain the lying. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Commenter. 1. Sure seems like she pretended the trip was happening to do something else with someone else. That's your worst case assumption, right? If so, what's her plan? Keep pretending she went? Keep you in the dark? Hope no friend outs her? Pretty stupid. If she's seeing someone else, she should just dump you. OP. Yay, that's my assumption. I don't really see any other reason why she would have pretended the trip was still planned. Even if I misunderstood the timeline of the trip getting canceled, like if that Venmo payment was for something else, I'd assume she would have told me when I texted her the morning of her flight. Commenter 2. I don't like to just assume the worst, but I don't see why she didn't mention that the trip was canceled unless she was up to something she didn't want you to know about. Especially if she'd known for over 2 weeks but was hyping up how thrilled she was to go the weekend before. But then again, she posted the concert she was at, so she wasn't exactly being too careful. I'm not sure. Could it just be a case of poor miscommunication? OP. Exactly why I'm so confused. Like, if she was purposely lying to me and trying to hide where she was, why would she post the show? Especially the last clip mentioning the city name. Was she just assuming I wouldn't know what the show was? Maybe she's trying to get me to break up with her? I'm really lost, but I feel like I'm gaslighting myself. It definitely wasn't miscommunication. When I tried to plan the date the day before her flight, I specifically mentioned the trip, and she said nothing. And I wished her a safe flight the morning of the flight. I really just don't know. Now for the update. Hey everyone, I had some DMs asking for an update, so here it is. To quickly summarize my last post. A few weeks back, my girlfriend was supposed to go on a trip a few states away to go to a conference. I came to find out that the conference was canceled, and she didn't actually go, and never even bothered to tell me. She lied by omission about it, by not telling me when I texted her to have a good flight. I found out she didn't go because her best friend posted a picture of them at a show in our local nearby city. So here we are, almost a month later. I was wrecked and spiraling these past few weeks, and after being together for almost 2 years, I was too panicked to reach out and ask to see her. During the 3 weeks since her planned trip, she hasn't reached out once to me. That was until yesterday, when she casually reached out like we hadn't just ignored each other for 3 weeks and asked to see a movie. So I just finally saw her tonight. In the car, I asked about her trip. Her facial response was really weird, like she got caught off guard. I'm guessing she was expecting me to forget about it after a few weeks of not seeing her. She just said, "It was okay," which instantly confirmed my suspicions. I asked her what she had done, and she said she went to that conference one day, which, as I said in my last post, was canceled, and went to a show before returning home the day after I made my original post. I asked her which, and she claimed the show that was in our local city. I was driving at the time and it was dark out, so I waited to confront her as I didn't want to get emotional and endanger us. I confronted her for lying about the trip, doubling down and lying about the conference, and tripling down to lie about the show. Her immediate response was to start deflecting, saying that if this is making me upset to imagine how she felt that her conference and trip was canceled. She said how she was so heartbroken and upset that the conference was canceled, which was canceled 5 weeks ago, that she didn't want to talk about it. She kept saying that she doesn't owe it to me or anybody else to tell us about her business and what's going on in her life. I, of course, called her out for gaslighting me, to which her response was that she was not gaslighting me. Kind of ironic, I guess. When I talked about how it made me feel and that she damaged my trust for her, she again tried to belittle my feelings by rolling her eyes and saying that it was only a show. This conversation ended up opening to a much bigger issue in our relationship that I didn't mention in my last post. Generally, Amy treated me really poorly throughout the relationship. She was hot and cold, put zero effort into communication, and it never felt like she made a priority. She'd give me zero affection or compliments despite drooling and crushing over male celebrities all day. She's made little effort to connect me and her family and friends. We've talked about all of this a few times now. She would always say she was overwhelmed with some new excuse and promise it would get better. I would cave in and agree to work through things. As expected, things never got better. This time was the same, where she blamed a new job for being overwhelmed, and that's why she's been so distant. But this time was different. I guess her blatant lie to my face and your guys' comments in the back of my mind gave me power to put my foot down. I broke up with her then and there. She kept begging me for one more chance, to think on it for a few days, that she cares about me and didn't intend to hurt me, all that nonsense. But the whole time, I was the one bawling, and there wasn't a tear on her face. It really broke my heart ending things, but I've also really grown to hate myself for putting up with her treatment for so long. I'm hurting a lot right now, and I'm scared to get back into the dating world after 2 years of aging and some weight gain. I really loved her with every bit of my heart, and I'm terrified to picture my life without her. I really want to call her up and give her one final chance to get things right, but I know I'd never forgive myself if she didn't change and broke my heart again. I'm hurting bad, and I could really use some words of encouragement right now. Thank you all. AITA. I just wanted to take the time to thank everyone for the overwhelming positivity. I didn't expect this post to blow up, but I'm glad it did. It really helped solidify me, knowing that I made the right choice, even if it's hurting right now. I miss my ex a lot, but I'm a little more confident that things will work out in the long run now. It's going to be a scary road, but I'm glad it's finally started. Thank you all again. Story 2. My F26 boyfriend, M27, keeps humiliating himself at events. What can I do? My boyfriend and I met in college in 2018 and were together from 20 to 24. We split up because he lost his job and refused to get a new one, making me cover our rent for 5 months. He was very unpleasant to be around during this time, particularly when I brought him to parties. Sometimes he would insult people, sometimes he would start fights. It became recurrent enough that friends would explicitly ask me not to bring him to anything. After one particularly bad party, where he drunkenly screamed in my face and tried to start a physical fight, he swore he would get help, that he saw how mortifying this was, and would never again put me in that position. When we finally split up in 2022, it was amicable. We remained cordial and respectful of each other, and he insisted he would make every effort to become the man I needed him to be. We both come from quite different backgrounds. I grew up stably middle class, and he grew up in a very dysfunctional, impoverished home. He is the only person in his family to get a college degree, and he's extremely intelligent. He is also, however, quite jaded, resenting many of our classmates and sometimes our friends. After we split, he moved away to work for an international tech company. I continued to work within my field and built up a strong network of friends and colleagues. Earlier this summer, we ran into each other on a night out. He seemed to be in a much better space than when I last saw him. We went on a few dates, and there was a marked change in his behavior and maturity. We spent the next few months rekindling our relationship. I was initially apprehensive to get back together, especially given how extreme his behavior could be at parties in the past. He assured me that that was behind him, and that he'd make every effort to be the man I deserved. Ultimately, I believed he changed. My work recently threw a launch party that I was unable to go to because I was sick. My coworker, Janice, is friends with my BF and brought him to the party. Another of my coworkers, Annie, is dating an old classmate of my BF's. When my BF discovered Annie was with his classmate, he started making a lot of jokes at his expense. Annie got really upset and screamed at him. It turned out that my BF used to bully Annie's boyfriend when they were teenagers, to the point that Annie's boyfriend changed schools to get away from my BF. My boss witnessed how my BF was speaking to Annie and asked him to leave the event. Afterwards, he was banned from the premises of my workplace. When my BF told me what had happened, he only told me that my boss had attacked him for being working class. I doubted this, but he was adamant that he did nothing wrong, meant no offense, and was being misunderstood. Last weekend, we went to a mutual friend's Halloween party. We know this friend from college, and I was actually introduced to him by my BF. I left my BF alone for about 15 minutes while I chatted with friends. When I did see him again, it was with the party host, who told us that several people had complained that my BF had insulted them. The following day, I got a message from the party host explaining that though I was always welcome at his home, my BF was not allowed to ever come to an event there again. When I confronted my BF about this, he initially laughed it off. I made it clear that this was a deal-breaker when we reconnected. He promised to look into therapy, but I told him that this behavior was completely unacceptable. He has now been banned from at least 5 homes, businesses, or events. I asked to take a few days to think about our future. He's asked me not to leave him and sent me flowers. I don't want to leave him, but I fear if I stay with him, he's going to isolate me from more and more of my friends. I despise how he acts and have asked him to change repeatedly. He insists he's going to change, but I've been through this cycle with him enough times to have very low expectations. I love him so much, but I can't let him destroy my life.